Hello, my name is Chuck Wolfe. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolfe@cjwolfe.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. This is Chuck Wolfe, and you're listening to The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. So nice to be back with you today. It's been a little while since I've been on the air and live. I hope you enjoyed the last show that I did. One of the things we talked a little bit about in the last show was what you do about New Year's resolutions. It's just a few days after New Year, so let me wish everybody that's listening a Happy New Year. And I want to hope that you're made a few resolutions that you think are important, and that those resolutions that you've had are keys to making things work in your life in a way that improves your life meaningfully. The show's all about helping people to deal with emotional challenges, and I hope that you find that it's useful to you. And if you've been waiting to call me, if you've got something you wanted to talk to me about, the number to call is 203-336-9756. So, again, this is Chuck Wolfe, The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I'd like to just welcome you to 2023. And this is my first show in this year, and it's my beginning of my 14th year here at WPKN. I want to thank WPKN and all the people who volunteer and do the incredible work behind the scenes to make this community radio station, as the New Yorker said, one of the best in the world. The best in the world, actually, the New Yorker said. But the show today, my show, is about community. It's about helping people deal with understanding how to deal more effectively with their own emotions. I have a strong belief that what happens to us internally has a big impact on what happens to everyone externally. If we have more inner peace, if we can help everybody around us to have more inner peace, I think life's a lot better for all of us. So how do you do that? Well, one of the experiences I was privileged to have in my lifetime is this idea that we have an emotional intelligence ability to basically manage our own emotions. And that one of the things that I've learned over the years is that, well, we all have this ability. We don't all manage it as successfully as others. Some people are really gifted at dealing with their emotions, and hopefully they're even helpful in dealing with other people's emotions as well. But one of the things that happens in life is that as we learn where we're strong and where we're weak, we also can learn perhaps ways to strengthen areas that might be weak when we start out in life. Now, when we start out in life, we're in part determined genetically by who our parents are. What was the background that they had genetically? And how does that influence our natural ability? But we also are given opportunities in our life to learn from our personal experiences. And those experiences, they have an impact too. They influence our native abilities, but they also allow us at times to increase our abilities or somehow they diminish us because of some poor experiences we might have in our lifetime. But wherever we are, wherever we're starting from, one of the things I believe, and I like to share with people, is that I think we can always be better. Well, nothing and no one is ever perfect. The ability to strive to be the best possible versions of ourselves is available to all of us. And so, in a sense, my New Year's resolution for this year, for 2023, is to work even harder to try to be thoughtful about the times I'm on the air, about how do I communicate to each of you who listens. All of you who listen regularly, thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you who don't know the show is the Emotion Roadmap again, and it's got a tagline, take the wheel and control how you feel. And the reason the tagline exists is because it's really important, I think, to understand that you can take more control over how you feel and how your feelings impact you. There are ways and techniques that I've learned that I share over time on this radio show to help people be better at managing what's going on inside of them. And I also want to help people as best I can deal with what's happening to those other people in your life that you care about. And maybe you don't care about certain other people in your life, but you have to work with them. And so you have to deal with other people. And how do you do that more effectively? So the show's both designed to help you internally and externally with your relationships at work, with your relationships at home, in your community, wherever you might go. There's always emotional issues showing up in your life. And in the ways that you deal with those emotional issues, how you deal with them, can you be more effective? The answer is absolutely yes, no matter what your native abilities are or what your previous experiences are. So with that in mind, this year, I'm going to spend more time with some pre-recorded shows going over some of the people I've helped, how I've helped them, in hopes that I do a better job teaching you who listen how to use this emotion roadmap. So I'm going to go back over that again today with you. And each time, because I think the best gift I can give to anybody else is the gift of understanding how to be more effective with this idea of an emotion roadmap. And the emotion roadmap, especially for those of you who are brand new to it, is this idea that sometimes what we're feeling isn't always helpful for what we're trying to get done, for what's right in front of us that we're trying to do. So if what we're feeling isn't helpful, and we realize that, and we make a choice to change what we're feeling to something that's more helpful, how could we possibly do that? You know, there's that old metaphor, you got to play the hand you're dealt. Well, emotionally, I don't know that that's always the case. I don't believe it is the case, and I know that there are times when I've helped people change how they're feeling emotionally about certain situations in their life that they're not sure how to handle. And when I'm through talking to them, they feel like they have a plan and they're feeling hopeful. And they have something that potentially is going to work for them to make life better. So the goal of my show is to make life better for you. And I want to do that in hopes of teaching you more about this emotion roadmap. So here's how it works. The emotion roadmap begins with this idea that all people in the world are constantly dealing with emotions. And always our emotions are informative. There's nothing emotionally that isn't useful in terms of what it's trying to teach us about ourselves and our situation. But sometimes an emotion that is meaningful in its intent might not be helpful at the moment. For example, I'm about to go on the air on a radio show. I want to be inspirational. I want to be educational. I want to be entertaining. I want to be all those things for everyone that's listening. But what if I walk in the door, I find out that, hey, somebody I care about just got hurt. Something happened to someone that's important to me, and it's impacting their lives in a very negative way. And that's what I hear right before I walk in the door to do the radio show. So while that's helpful to know about the person in my life I care about, that something bad has happened to them, it is helpful to know that. And it is helpful to grieve for them and to think about, is there something I can do to support them? At the moment, when I'm walking in the door to do my radio show, it's not helpful. It's actually an obstacle to being effective for all of you. So how do I change how I'm feeling when I walk in the door? How do I compartmentalize that feeling, kind of put it aside, knowing I have to deal with it? I can't ignore it, but I don't want to deal with it right now. How do I do that? Lots of times there are feelings of uncertainty, of self-doubt, of confusion. And those feelings, again, are often informative in terms of that's where we are at the moment. These are things that are concerning us that we don't have a solution for yet. And sometimes even good critical thinkers, even smart people who are really good problem solvers normally get stuck. And when they're stuck, I have found almost universally that when someone is stuck, it is because something inside them is concerning them that has to do with emotion. Now, it might be something emotionally they're dealing with just totally that's internal to them that has nothing to do with anybody else. I've got a decision to make. Do I take this job or that job? Do I live here or there? Do I buy this house, this car, that car? Do I get married to this person or do I wait? Oh, so many decisions that sometimes are difficult to make. Lots of those things impact our lives. Those are big ones. But the small ones, everyday decisions. Do I stop to get lunch or do I wait till I get home? Do I eat something healthy? Do I eat something that's in the house that's just delicious, but not necessarily in the best interest of longevity? So we got decisions to make all the time, big ones, small ones, and everything in between. What helps with that? What helps with that? Well, one of the things that helps with that is this idea that we can be smarter about emotions by walking through this emotion roadmap I created. So if, for example, I'm in a situation where I have a feeling of grief, as I said in the beginning of this conversation about emotions, is if I started with grief, because I just heard somebody got hurt that I cared about, but I've got to be inspirational, motivational, engaging. How do I get from the grief I just experienced to feeling differently, better, more ideal for my circumstance, which in this case is I want to be entertaining for you, I want to be engaging for you, I want to be inspirational, hopefully. How do I do it? Well, I start to ask myself, okay, if that's what I want to feel, and this is how I am feeling, what's the roadmap? That's the key here. What's the emotion roadmap to get from what I am feeling to what would be ideal to feel? So in part, I want to understand about emotions. So what do I know? What does emotional science teach me about emotions? So for example, if grief is one of the emotions that I just experienced walking in the door, because I got a phone call or a text or something indicating somebody I cared about was hurt somehow or not well. So if I just got that note and I'm walking in the door and I'm hearing about that, one thing I know about the science of emotion is you can't cheat grief. You're going to grieve at some point. Now, you might grieve months later. We're all different on how we deal with grief, but we are going to deal with it. And at some point, I'm going to go through the anger or the sadness. Or usually you have an intense reaction to something that causes you to grieve. Yeah, it's a loss of some kind. And sometimes you get mad about it. And so sometimes you get deeply sad about it. And over a period of time, you begin to recognize that life has its ups and downs. And this was a particularly down moment when I heard about this loss. And I am grieving. Sometimes I'll cry. Sometimes I'll just feel a sadness and mope a bit. Sometimes it goes on for days, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, even for years. Some people still grieve the loss of a loved one years later. But I also know about the science of grief that the way we become healthy is we accept that life has its ups and downs. We accept that there are things in life that we really feel cheated by, upset by, angry about, certainly sad about. But also there are things in life that we can feel good about, happy about, grateful for. and that we have choices about what we wake up and what we think about, what we feel, and what we do. We have choices. Now, some people, there's this chemical imbalance and there's, clinical depression. I mean, there are things that go outside of what's the norm for most of us. But I think all of it is somewhat influenced and certainly able to at least manage better if we understand how emotions work in general, which is the science, and how they work in us. And one of the things that I found is each person's experience of grief is different. I really struggle to talk to people who are lost loved ones, for instance. I've learned to be better at this, but it's hard for me. And I have a wonderful partner in life, my wife, Barbara, who is really gifted at seeming to be able to say the right thing at the right time to somebody who's sad at the experience of a loss. And others who are just okay at it, that I know, that are part of my life. But I try to be better at it. I try to emulate what my wife does, which is to find something that you can share about the person if they've lost someone, and something that brings them a feeling of comfort and understanding that the person sitting across from you has a genuine concern and cares about you. That helps with grief. Bringing something over, something where you might make a meal for someone. Bringing flowers if someone likes flowers, or a plant that is going to live past flowers, an arrangement of flowers. If someone cares about taking care of plants, it might be that somebody doesn't do well with that and you're better off with cut flowers. But the idea is doing something that isn't just automatic, but is what you think would be valued by the person you're going to go see. So the idea, again, of an emotion roadmap is to think about how are you feeling. If what you're feeling is informative but not helpful at the moment, at least, can you change that feeling? Now, sometimes, as I said, like grief, you can't really change the feeling of grief, but you can compartmentalize it, put it aside for a moment, at least say to yourself, I know I'm going to grieve about this. This is making me incredibly sad, but I don't want to be sad in this moment. So what I want to say to myself is, I have a duty, I have a responsibility, I have a show, I want to go on the air, I want to be helpful to people, I want to be engaging with people, I want to be fun with people, I want to be uplifting for people. So that's what I'm saying to myself. And that's one of the ways I think we can change the way we deal with emotions, is we change what those emotions are causing us to think by changing the self-talk, the dialogue, the internal dialogue we have with ourselves. So that's about something internal. But what about when we're trying to deal with somebody else who we're trying to change somebody from being angry? And this is why I want to play some of the pre-recorded shows, because I've had a lot of callers over the years, and some of those calls have been incredibly useful to the caller, certainly, but to everyone listening, because it's a really good example of how the emotion roadmap might be helpful. How the emotion roadmap might be helpful to someone, and how it might be helpful to you. So the steps in the roadmap are: first, what's your context? What's your situation? Second, how are you feeling? And what would be ideal for you to feel? And is there someone else, one or more people, that might be key to what you're trying to get done? And if there is, then how is he or she or they feeling? And what would be ideal for them to feel? And then through understanding emotions, I ask, well, okay, so how might we get you from feeling the way you are to the way you want to feel? And for people who are a part of this whole conversation, in terms of people that are involved with you in terms of what you're trying to get done, how is he or she or they feeling, and how do we get them to feel the way you think it would be ideal for them to feel? And I help you plan that. And then when we come up with usually more than one plan, several ideas, I'll ask you, well, of the things we're talking about, is there something substantive that you're really able to do? You're pretty certain you're able to do it. So that's a key part of this, is, are you able? Because sometimes we get great ideas, but truthfully, we're not able. Maybe it's going to take a lot of time and we don't have the time. Maybe we think taking them on vacation would be a great idea, but we don't have the money. So perhaps there's something that we're really not able to do. But what if we are able? That's number one. If we are able And we know we're able. That's the first affirmative part of the conversation around managing emotions. That's critical for you to have a plan that has a chance to work. And the second part, it's also just as critical, but in a different way, is are you willing? Do we have a plan where you're really willing and want to do what we're talking about? Or is it something that you know will probably make the situation better and you're able to do it, but there's something going on inside you that says, you know what, I'm really not willing to do this. Now, there's lots of reasons that happens. Sometimes the only way you correct some of those things is deep therapy because of the attitudinal issues that you might have about why you're unwilling to do something that you know is going to get you the outcome you said you wanted. And yet, when we give you a plan and you come up with a plan that you think has the power to change what's going on in a very positive way, and you know you're able to execute that plan, but for some reason, something inside of you saying, you know what, I know myself well enough to know I'm not really willing to do this. So you're honest with yourself, we got to move on to find something else. But you'd be amazed at how many times I've gotten to the place where we got a plan, sounds good, are you willing? Not really. You got to then look at the other plans you might have to see if you can say to any plan, hey, yes, I'm willing and I'm able and let's go. As soon as I hang up this phone, I'm starting on this plan. That's when we know we've got a plan that has a good chance to work. Doesn't mean, just like any plan, doesn't mean that you have a plan that's going to be exactly the way you envision it. But it's certainly better than not having a plan, isn't it? So that's how the show works. That's how the Emotion Roadmap works. And so I'm going to be doing some more, several pre-recorded shows where, again, I want to teach this to you. I want you to understand it. I want you to get it. I love doing the show because I really like making a difference for people. I really do. It's really important to me. And so if you call and I help you, I know you feel better, but you feeling better makes me feel better. So I'm going to give you the number to call. I'm going to see if we've got anybody who's been listening that wants to call. What might you talk about if you're new to the show? Really anything. Anything where you're stuck, where you're uncertain, in doubt about how to proceed. It can be at home. It can be at work. It can be in your community somehow, in a group you belong to, in a band that you're a part of, in a chorus maybe, in a book group, a leadership team, a project that you're running. It can be anything. And walking you through this roadmap, sometimes magic happens. That's some of the calls I'll play for you. It seems like magic happens from the time someone calls in and they're feeling really uncertain and sometimes sad or just unhappy about what's going on. They feel very hopeful at the end of the conversation, if it works, and it often does. So here's the number. I'll give it to you a couple times. So 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. I'll give you a minute to call. I always wonder sometimes if there's anyone that just can't wait to call. Doesn't seem to be the case this morning. But I'll give you that number again. You know, I also know that if I'm put myself in your situation and I'm thinking, here's a guy on the radio and he's talking about situations that are very personal on the radio to see if he might be able to help me with this emotion roadmap. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. I get that. I do. But I also know that, hey, I'm here twice a month, only live this once this month. And if you want that kind of help, this is the perfect time to call. I'm on till 12:55, so we get time to talk. And if you wait till the end, you think, geez, I wish I'd done that. Or you call me with 2 minutes left of the show, I can't help you. So if you're thinking about it at all, make the leap. Take a leap of faith. 203-336-9756. Well, while I'm waiting, I do want to talk to you a little bit about what do you do around New Year's resolutions? because a lot of us make them, and for whatever reason, we have a hard time sticking to them. And I know it's challenging at times to honor an agreement you make with yourself, and we often make the same resolution year after year after year. So it doesn't always work that well, right? But what makes something change meaningfully and sustainably change to something better? What can we do? What can we understand about that? How do we make that work? So I actually wrote a chapter for the International Coaching Federation. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is. Anybody in the coaching world knows what it is. It's one of the most well-known certification programs for coaches, people that want to do coaching for a living, all kinds of coaching, whether it's career coaching, life coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, all kinds of coaching. And what they wanted, the authors, the editors rather, of this book, who were part of the Pittsburgh chapter of the International Coaching Federation. They're professors at Duquesne University, and they decided they were going to write sort of a physician's desk reference. If you know what that is, sort of like something a doctor might have on his desk to look something up that he sort of remembers, but he wants to check. It's just a lot of these things are all now digitized, but a lot of times they used to be just like a manual that they called the physician's desk reference. Well, they wanted that for coaches. Okay, got that first call. Let's see. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Yeah, hi, Chuck. It's Norman.
Hi, Norman. Could you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I am. I'm right next to the phone.
Okay.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I can hear you a little better now. I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
What can I do for you today?
Well, I don't know. The new year is here, and every year, I feel a little older, and I'm dealing with that.
Well, and, can I say that the alternative isn't so good?
The alternative? No. I mean, I'm facing the fact that, yes, I am getting older, and, the proof of the pudding is the aches and pains, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about my ailments, but, just emotionally going through that is a little bit of a challenge, because I see friends in the same situation, and
right.
Some are hanging in there and some are not. Like my brother recently is a couple of years older than me, passed away last year, and that was a big emotional thing for me.
Oh, sure.
And and you mentioned a coaching association. He was a big time coach up in Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
He coached, the youth athletic teams. They traveled around the world, as a matter of fact.
Oh, no kidding.
So he's pretty well. Yeah, he's pretty well known up there.
Cool.
And if you Google his name, you'll find out about him. But the one day that after his passing, and this is before the memorial service, which was in November, I stood in my apartment, and I had two brothers, a younger brother who also passed away, and my older brother. I'm the middle guy,
Yeah.
And I realized I don't have any brothers. I don't have any brothers anymore. And that really, really hit me, I don't have any brothers to talk to.
Yeah, that's a sadness that doesn't go away. I mean, when you think about it, you're obviously dealing with something that you can't replace. They're not there to talk to. I mean, you have the memories of them. Yeah, if you believe in an afterlife, you can sort of think that you're having a conversation with them, but it's not the same. And it's sad.
Yeah, before he passed, he was in the hospital, in and out.
Mm-hmm.
He passed. He had an infection, and it was called sepsis, which was I never heard of before, but until then, sepsis is an infection runs through the body and takes the best of you, and eventually takes all of you.
Uh-huh.
So I would talk to him, call him on the phone a lot because I live here in Connecticut and he lives up there in Syracuse. And we had good conversation. I did get a chance to see him. Not just before he passed away. I was going to go up to see him the last time he was in the hospital. And then I get COVID and I couldn't go up there.
Yeah.
And that's when he passed away. And I really felt like I was cheated,
Sure.
From the opportunity of being with him and talking with him before he passed.
Sure.
So, I try not to let that bother me, but I'm dealing with it and the best I can. But it keeps coming back.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Got to deal with it again.
The New Year kind of trigger it for you a little bit.
Well, yeah, because I used to go up there a lot Christmas time and see them, and it was about the only time I saw him was around Christmas time.
Right.
But this time I was in the hospital. But he's got a lot of kids, and I got a lot of nieces and nephews from his marriage, and it was an opportunity to see them all when I went to the memorial service, which was nice. And my daughter came with me. She hadn't seen them in a long, long time. So it was good to get everybody together and see them and talk with them and just be with them. And, get back in touch because my family sort of is not that tight, So I sort of like I have to do all the work in keeping in touch because they're not good at keeping in touch as much as I would like them to be.
Sure, no, I understand. Norman, I think you're making sense not just for yourself, but for me and for all kinds of people listening, because a lot of us are, have lost people that we love and feel the sadness when we think about them. And that's pretty normal, I think. I think the part that isn't normal sometimes is that the grieving goes on and you don't ever recover from it. But that doesn't sound like you. It sounds like every once in a while you're just remembering about them. You're experiencing a sadness and a loss. And then do you have ways that you normally benefit from that help you to kind of feel better about things?
Well, I have my artwork. I'm an artist and a photographer, and I like to. Then I create. I just sit down and start, painting or doing something creative to just go into another world.
So you have an outlet, some kind of a creative outlet that allows you to do something that takes you into a different place.
Yeah, exactly. And I see people that I live with here in the same building that are, getting on in age, but they have nothing, no hobbies or anything. And it makes me wonder, what the heck are they doing? You got to keep the mind working. That's what I feel.
Well, I think that's a great strategy. I think for a lot of people who are listening that may not have an outlet like that, one of the things that works for me is to kind of reframe when I'm feeling sad at the loss of. I have one brother, and he's still with us, thank goodness. But when my dad died a long time ago. My mom, not it's been a while now too. But he said, "Hey, Chuck, we're orphans now. We don't have any parents anymore." And we laughed for a moment, but there was a sadness with that, and when I think about my parents and they're being gone a long time now, it sometimes is a sadness. But what I try to teach people with this roadmap is the sadness comes from the feeling about the loss, but the self-talk also helps to drive the sadness. What am I saying about the loss? Wish you were here, Mom. Wish you were here, Dad. I wish I could talk to you. Or can I change that up so that thank you for being there when I needed you? If you were here now, this is what I'd say to you. And I'd smile if it was my dad because we laughed a lot together. Or if it was my mom, something about, something I felt proud of that I'd like to share with her because I knew how good it made her feel. And it changed, so if I can change the inner dialogue and what I'm saying to myself about the people that are missing in my life, it makes me feel better. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah, it's very seldom I have any thoughts about my mom because she passed away a long time. My dad passed away when I was a little kid. I mean, he's been going much longer.
Yeah.
But my mother, again, she remarried 2 times after my dad died. She was a person, I guess, who didn't want to be alone, and she met these wonderful guys. I'm Scandinavian. She belonged to the Scandinavian Club down in Brooklyn, New York, where I was brought up and born. And she remarried 2 times to Scandinavian guys who were wonderful guys, but they also passed away. But my mom passed away before my second stepfather. So there's a lot of deaths went on in my family. I mean, fathers, two stepfathers, my brother's mother, my mother, and it's so I'm dealing with all these. I think about it. Sometimes it makes me laugh. Actually, what the hell? I mean, I got so many of these passings in my life. I say to myself, "Hey, I must be next."
Well,
so it's reality. It's reality.
My brother likes to joke about that. He's a golfer. I'm not, but you get the metaphor. He says, "I think we're all in the back 9." In terms of the people our age, we just don't know which hole we're on.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah. Also, they say, one foot on a banana peel and the other one in the grave.
Right. Well, I mean, again, when you think about the life and death, that one is the fact that we die is scary, and any health scares you have, or anytime you fall when you get older, all those things are pretty scary. That aren't scary when you're young because you're not thinking about it. But as you age and you have the experience of losing people, and that you're moving closer to the front of the line here. One of the things that strikes me, by the way, that I actually wanted to talk about anyway today, is this idea of focusing on the things to be grateful for. Is it how you have a creative outlet? You said where you're an artist and your photography takes you to a different place. Yeah. I think there's, for all of us that might not have something like that, there's often things that we're grateful for when we stop and reflect on what are we thankful for. I mean, even the fact that we're alive at all is pretty amazing when you think about it. That we've got to live and we had this experience and we had these wonderful moments of time with these people that aren't here now. But boy, there were some great times that we had along the journey. And so, I mean, again, a lot of what I find is helpful in life when you're dealing with things like this is how do we frame things? And if we can reframe them in a more positive way, then we're feeling better about the day. And that's, I think, helpful to people.
Well, I'm just grateful for a lot of things. I know what you're talking about. At my brother's memorial service, I stood up in front of the church. All the people, the church was filled because of my brother's popularity in the area, through his coaching. And as a matter of fact, I learned so much more about my brother from those people speaking about him who knew him, and things that I never knew, little things, and also when I got up, I spoke, and I was grateful for my sister-in-law. My brother was married the second time. His first wife he got divorced from, but she passed away too. But anyway, I had to acknowledge my brother's second wife, and because she was there, they were married 38 years, and she was there for him, a loving, caring person, and I acknowledged her in front of, in the church there with my eulogy, and it made me feel good that I did that because she deserved it, and I don't know. that was the point in my mind that I needed to say. To acknowledge
it's
something.
nice that you're able to say something, and you know what I mean. That's a nice memory to share too. Something that made you feel like you wanted her in some way.
Yeah, and she was. I could tell that she smiled. I could see her smiling.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah, she was grateful for that. So there are a lot of things I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dismiss everything. I'm grateful I have a beautiful daughter. Thank God for her. She's a wonderful person who I can talk to. She's married and lives out in Jersey. We talk a lot on the phone, and she cares for me. And I realize that how much she cares for me, and that's a saving grace right there. Somebody that cares about you and loves you. She loves me.
Yeah, that's right.
I love the heck.
No, that's something special. You also mentioned that your family isn't as close as it could be, and you work to make that better. I think that's something special you're bringing too. That you could be grateful for, but hopefully other people are grateful that you're doing that too. I know one of the things happened recently this year for me. I had an uncle who was a relatively poor man financially, but a rich man in the way he lived his life, in the sense that he never had much that he needed. And whatever he had, he was always willing to give to anybody that might need it more than him. And he was my favorite uncle by far. And he just passed away this year. And one of the things that I've tried to do is to stay in touch with his daughter, who's my cousin, but I was actually, really close with him. But I thought, that would be a nice thing for him if he knew that I was kind of reaching out and spending time thinking about his daughter and giving her a call and checking in on her. And so there's, again, a lot of these things where we've lost someone that we cared about. If like what you said about reaching out to some of your family, maybe your brother's children or something, just calling on a birthday or just saying hello or just something, I think is special too.
Well, yeah, I made it a point that when at the memorial service to get all the information from my nieces and nephews. My brother had 6 children, four boys and 2 girls. But the thing is that they live all over the country, and one of my nieces lives up in Alaska. They're all married and everything. They have kids of their own. It's amazing the family, the size of the family that my brother generated. It was so nice to see them, and so the point is, I got their addresses and phone numbers and everything. So every now and then, I plan to just call them and keep in touch with them, because I never did this before, and that's what I mean about they're not that close, because they live so far away, and they never contacted me. All I would hear about them is through my brother talking to me about his kids, and who I never saw or hardly talked to, And so it was like a reunion of the hearts when I was there at the memorial service. My brother's death brought together the rest of the family. So that's what I'm grateful for too.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. And the new year, when people send me cards and wish me Happy New Year, I always try to put in an extra word. I say, have a happy, abundant New Year. And an abundant New Year, so that, it's better than you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm working on that. I don't know. It's like, I think I was put on this world to keep things in order for my family, especially. I don't know. I'm not. I'm just who I am.
It's hard to know exactly why we're put here, but I think when you find meaningful purpose in life that makes you feel good, makes others feel good, you're doing a kindness for other people. It's all benefit. It benefits everyone, I think. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the call, Norman. I think it's nice that you reflected on this, and I'm sorry about your loss, but it sounds like you're dealing with it well, and I think it's a good conversation to have. I think as people reflect on the new year and who's with them and who's not, and you know, is there a positive way to move forward even when people are gone, as you honor their memories and you try to reach out to the other family members and you think about how grateful you are for the time you had with them.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Chuck. And I thank you very much for doing what you're doing. Being on the radio and getting these calls. I wish more people would call and not be afraid to express themselves. Really, no matter what it is.
Well, I'm glad you called, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much, and you have a happy New Year. An abundant New Year, whatever that means to you.
An abundant. Well, look it up. Abundant. Google.
No, I
abundant.
know what it means to me, but I'm sure it means something special to you too. Okay, you take care, Norman. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for the call, Norman. So that's what it's about, folks. I still have some time if you want to call in 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Loss is tough. It's not easy to deal with, but again, how you frame things is so important. And part of that emotion roadmap is about that. It's about thinking about how you are feeling. How do you want to feel? And is reframing one of the possibilities for changing how you feel? It absolutely is. I think so often that sometimes the feelings we have that aren't helpful at the moment, but they might be real and they're always informative. You want to understand what they're trying to communicate to us, what it means to us to feel this way right now. And then if I want to stay in that feeling, because it makes sense to stay in that feeling, that's fine. If it feels like that feeling has lingered too long or it's not helpful, and I want to turn it into something better, can I reframe it by changing the internal dialogue I have with myself about it? And that's how this works. So, again, this is Chuck Wolfe. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. The show is on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 on the community strip. And we do this as part of reaching out to you as our community. There's lots of opportunities to volunteer at WPKN. And if you want to make some kind of volunteer effort, everybody appreciates that. And just look us up on the website and give us a call when you can. So we've been talking today about kind of the new year and being reflective and thinking about what's coming going forward. This is my 14th year here, and the show is about helping people deal with their emotions. We all face emotional challenges regularly, some small, some medium, some large, some very large issues challenge us emotionally. And this emotion roadmap that I've created, I think helps on all levels. And it's basically just a process that seems simple, but actually, if you practice it, you can get better at it, but it doesn't come easy. You got to really work at it. So one of the things you might think about doing over the weeks ahead is anytime you're feeling uncomfortable with something going on, you feel a bit confused perhaps, uncertain, doubtful, upset, wondering what to do next, got a decision to make, ask yourself, how are you feeling? And is how you feeling helpful? And if it's not, what would be more ideal to feel? If you could magically make some other feeling happen for you, what would that be? And if the circumstance or situation that's causing you to feel the self-doubt, uncertainty, and so forth is something involving somebody else, maybe one person, maybe more, whoever might be key to what it is that is going on in your life, how is he or she or they feeling? And again, magically, if you could make them feel what would be ideal to feel, what would that be? And then how do you get there? And that comes from understanding emotions and comes from understanding who is it that you're talking about. If I'm talking about me, like I was just talking to Norman a moment ago, abundant means a certain thing to me. It means something to Norman too. Abundant for some tends to be, lots of things. Abundant to me these days means lots of gratitude. Grateful for so many things in my life. So that's how it works, everybody. Again, I got a few more minutes if you'd like to call in. 203-336-9756. Okay, I got one more topic to talk about. One of the people I was privileged to work with in my lifetime was a fellow named Tony Athos. And I got to work with Tony at Harvard Business School in 1980 to 82. And it's a long time ago, but I distinctly remember what I learned from him. He was one time on the cover of Time magazine as one of the world's greatest college teachers, and he was incredible. His understanding of human and organization behavior was the best of anyone I've ever met then or since then, in all the years I'm alive now. And he was working on something called a 7S model of organizational effectiveness that was designed to be used by a group called McKinsey Consulting Company. McKinsey is one of the most well-known, most reputable consulting companies in the world. And they were looking for something that would help them to work with organizations, to help organizations become more effective. That was what they sold, their services to help organizations become more effective. Well, Tony worked on something that was called the 7S model. At the heart of the model was the first S he called superordinate goals. Those are the things that organizations are designed to achieve, the things that matter most, not the things necessarily that are written about or talked about, but things that are actually, if you look at behavior, the things that are valued most. And how you achieve those superordinate goals were impacted by 6 other S's. There was strategy, 1S, structure, a 2nd S, how the organization was structured, the systems that are in place, the 3rd S, those were considered hard S's. Soft S's were considered staff, who works for you, skills, what skills do they have, and staff, skills, and style. What is the way we work together? That's what mattered most. And so those 6 S's all work together in combination to support the superordinate goals. And so when you come into an organization, you say, what is it you're trying to achieve? Those would be the superordinate goals. And how is strategy, structure, systems, skill, style, and staff impacting all of that? Well, the fellow that worked with him is a fellow named Tom Peters. And Tom Peters recently wrote a book. He's still alive, and he wrote a book called Excellence Now, Extreme Humanism. And I haven't read the book. I was just reading reviews about it this past weekend because I'm working with Tony's model, the 7S model, but instead of superordinate goals at the center, I'm looking at shared feelings. I'm thinking, I've had this emotional intelligence background too. I've been privileged to learn about and become an expert in, and I want to combine the models. And Tom Peters sort of is talking about that this way too. And he's saying, what if at the heart of it, well, I'm saying now, what if at the heart of everything we care about in any kind of organization we're part of is we think about what are the shared feelings we all want about this organization, about each other, about how we work together, about what we contribute, about what we get done. And I'm excited about doing that work. And I encourage you, if you're interested in that idea about doing more with organizational life and understanding how people matter and make a big difference in that, I'd suggest that you consider taking a look at his book. Look at the reviews first. Again, I haven't read it, so I can't recommend it. But Peters is a brilliant guy. Some people might remember him for his work on In Search of Excellence. He and Robert Waterman, who also worked on the 7S model with Tony, Robert Waterman and Tom Peters wrote the book In Search of Excellence. And that was one of the best sellers in multiple languages around the world for helping people find better and smarter ways to lead. And I think Tom's come around, like a lot of people in the organization behavior field, to understand that the importance of feelings and people really, really are impactful. One of the quotes I remember from reading about him this past weekend was this idea that he worked at Stanford, and I think he was in the Stanford Business School for a long time. And so people ask, he was saying that people ask me all the time, why aren't I talking more about strategy or finance or operations and the more tough business issues? And he said, I talk about people all the time because people is all there is. Without people, none of those other things matter. If you're not paying attention to your people, I don't care what your strategy is, how good your financial systems are, what your operations look like. If there's a lack of caring about the people that work for you, you're not going to make it. You're certainly not going to make it as big as you could or as successful as you could be. And I agree with that. So my New Year's resolution, again, is to try and be more communicative in a way that is more about teaching. So I hope that from the conversation with Norman today, you looked at the ideas of how an emotion roadmap can help guide you in trying to deal with challenging feelings, whatever they might be, wherever they might come from. We all don't deal exactly the same way with feelings, but we do understand that sadness is about loss for all of us. Anger is about an injustice. We may not see the same injustices, but that's what it's about. I wish you all well, and I'll be back with you soon. Take care, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Support for WPKN comes from M&T Bank, celebrating the power of together. Together, moving communities forward while giving back. Together, supporting small businesses, nonprofits, and families here in Connecticut and New York. More information about M&T's commitment to the people, businesses, and community organizations they serve is available at mtb.com/togetherwecan or any local M&T Bank branch. Member FDIC.
This is Hazel Khan inviting you to tune into North Fork Works on Wednesday to hear farmer artists Agathe Snow and Anthony Holbrook talk about learning to grow mushrooms on their farm, Matterduck Mushrooms, why they believe mushrooms can help feed the world, and how they have integrated mushrooms into their art. Wednesday at 8 p.m. Please join us if you can. Thank you.
This is Caroline Doctorow, and I hope that you'll join me this Saturday night at 7 p.m. for Song Trails, a celebration of folk and roots music with well-known artists and others that are a bit below the radar. So that's Song Trails with me, your host, Caroline Doctorow, here on WPKN 89.5 on your FM dial and streaming live at WPKN.org.
If there is one thing every one of us can do to help mitigate climate warming, it's simply composting our table scraps. Hi, this is Kevin Gallagher, host of Digging in the Dirt, and my next guest is a self-described solutionary who is working with the local municipalities, restaurant owners, homeowners, farmers, and environmentalists of the East End of Long Island with the goal of recovering and reusing 100% of their table scraps to create compost and renew the soils of the region. Join me as Mark Hobner, president of the North Fork Environmental Council, and I discuss the exciting cooperation of East End Long Islanders as they tackle the problem of composting their food waste. Next Monday at 5 p.m. here on listener-supported WPKN.
Hi, I'm Ann. I'm a longtime listener of WPKN. I wanted to let you know that donating a vehicle is a really simple process. All you have to do is go to WPKN.org. You fill in a small bit of information, then submit it. For me, it took about 5 minutes to get a call back, then one follow-up call to set everything up. They were out the next day with a tow truck and took care of it all from there. If you're considering donating a car to help PKN, go for it. By donating, you avoid all the hassles of selling the vehicle yourself. Forget about the low offers, mechanical repairs, and liability issues, and not posting your phone number is also a big plus. My payment comes in the form of a tax deduction, but more than that, I get the great feeling of helping out my favorite radio station. WPKN needs our support, so it remains the independent, freeform radio station that is such a rare find today.
Hi, Hi, I'm Susan Schnetzer, the President and CEO of the Connecticut Institute for Refugees and Immigrants, known in our communities as CIRI. Over a 104-year history, CIRI has built a legacy of leadership, compassionate service, and effective advocacy for immigrants and refugees. We welcome and support newcomers fleeing war, persecution, and poverty, providing safety, a pathway to healing, and the opportunity to thrive in our communities. CIRI's holistic service model assists clients as they rebuild their lives. We do not do this alone. We need your help in making all welcome in our communities. To learn more about CIRI's services and how you may help, CIRICT.org or 203-336-0141.
Hi, this is Richard Epstein, host of Sometimes Classical, here every other Wednesday from 1 in the afternoon till 4 in the afternoon. And after 44 years of doing this, I never know what's next. You're tuned to WPKN in Bridgeport 89.5 FM and broadcasting around the world at WPKN.org.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.